Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Reviews. As always, I'm your host, Chris, and this is a show about all things movies and TV. Got another awesome episode for you all today. For our featured film, we're going to be patrolling the streets of Los Angeles. I'm going to be reviewing End of Watch, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Peña, one of my favorite cop movies of all time, and it might be the best cop movie of all time. We will see. We've got a double feature coming up. We got today, End of Watch, like I said, and then next episode, I'll be reviewing Training Day, starring Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. And then we're going to do a blockbuster showdown between the two cop films. So I'm very excited for the next couple of episodes. At the top, a couple of reminders. You can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the cinematic reviews. You can also listen to the audio version on your favorite podcast listening platform. You can also follow the show on X, Facebook, and Instagram. I post a lot of artwork from the episodes and other announcements relating to movies and TV. Got a big announcement coming up. Actually, two announcements. First, in the month of October, we are going to be doing Fright Nights. Every Friday in the month of October, I will be reviewing a scary movie. We're going to do, let me pull up the schedule here. We got 5 Fridays in the month of October. So, first up, we're going to do Seven, the infamous David Fincher film starring Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Then the following Friday, we're going to do the first Saw movie, which I haven't seen in a very long time. Then we're going to do Sinners, the Michael B. Jordan blockbuster sensation that came out this past spring. Then we're going to move on to Sinister, another Ethan Hawke film, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And then we're going to finish up with the first Scream movie, which is an incredible film that I've been wanting to do on this podcast. It's my favorite slasher movie, one of my favorite movies to watch on Halloween. So that episode will actually be airing on Halloween this year. So that is awesome. And then after that, we're going to move into another Friday event, and that is Marvel Fridays. Every Friday, I'm going to be reviewing one MCU movie or TV show. This is anticipation for the Avengers Doomsday film coming out next year on December 18th. So every Friday, starting on November, I believe, 5th. Let me pull up the calendar just to make sure. November 7th. That's my bad. So November 7th will be the first Friday. We'll be starting with Iron Man, starring Robert Downey Jr. And then every Friday after that, I'll be going in the order that they came out in theaters. So we're going to do phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, leading up to the Avengers Doomsday film, which comes out next year in December. So that'll be the two big events coming up. And then at the beginning of the week, we will also be doing some other episodes, but that is for the next year or so. Every Friday, there will be an episode, mostly Marvel, but in October, we'll start out with those Fright Nights. So I'm very, very excited for those two events coming out. We got a couple of new releases still to come out, like Tron Ares, Wicked for Good, and Avatar Fire and Ash will be coming out, and then some other franchise films like The Lord of the Rings, Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon will be episodes that I'll be doing as well. So a lot of content coming for you guys, both on audio and video. So stay tuned for that. I'll post the schedule for the Fright Nights and the Marvel Friday schedule as well. So very excited. So back to today's episode. Let's head over to a couple bits of news, and then I do have one reaction for y'all today. So it's been about a week or so since I've been behind the mic. So there's a couple of news items that I wanted to talk about. The first being we did unfortunately lose Terrence Stamp, the iconic actor who played Zod in Superman. And then he played in other various films like Star Wars and what was that other one? Yes Man with Jim Carrey. But I think he's most well known for as General Zod in the Christopher Reeves Superman film. So thoughts and prayers go out to his friends and family. Then we did get a Batman Part 2 update. Zoe Kravitz, who played Catwoman in the first film, will not be returning for the Batman Part 2, which is very unfortunate. I really liked seeing her on screen as Catwoman, and her chemistry with Robert Pattinson's Batman was really cool. So that's unfortunate. Hopefully she'll be getting her own series maybe, or she'll be returning for Part 3. I know Colin Farrell has come out as well and said that his Penguin character does have a smaller role in this sequel as well. So it sounds like Matt Reeves is going to want to explore different characters in this sequel to the very welcomed new take on Batman. So those are kind of your Batman updates for now. Harry Potter, the HBO series, is filming right now. I posted a few screenshots of Hagrid and Harry running around the streets of London. So I'm sure we'll be getting more behind the scenes footage of that show as it begins filming. So that's kind of the news wrap up. I did have one reaction, and that is the Wes Anderson film that came out a few months ago. I finally was able to sit down and watch it. It is currently streaming on Peacock right now. So go ahead and check that out if you are a Wes Anderson fan. But that is The Phoenician Scheme. Let me pull up the cast list. It stars Benicio del Toro. Michael Cera pops up in there. Willem Dafoe. It's a lot of Wes Anderson who's. Like Bill Murray shows up. Tom Hanks comes in. Bryan Cranston shows up. It's a lot of different actors throughout the Wes Anderson saga. I think Jeffrey Wright pops up in there. Benedict Cumberbatch is the devious brother to Benicio del Toro. So kind of the backstory of this movie, if you're not familiar with it. Benicio plays a really wealthy businessman. His daughter, played by Mia, I'm going to butcher this name, through Pelton. She begins this journey with her father, Benicio del Toro's character, in finding the murderer to her mother. It is suspected that Benedict Cumberbatch's character had something to do with it, so they kind of go through this journey of trying to find some answers with her mother's untimely death. She ends up developing a relationship with Michael Cera, who ends up, through some twists and turns, being an undercover spy as well. I love Michael Cera in here. He was probably my favorite character in this film. He starts off as this kind of dorky assistant to Benicio del Toro's character. And then eventually, like I said, it gets revealed that he is like a super spy agent. But he played it very, very well. I think everybody was really good in here. Riz Aziz pops up in here as well, who I actually love. But yeah, it's such an extensive cast list. But that's kind of the thing with all Wes Anderson films. If you listened to my review of Asteroid City, that was the previous Wes Anderson film that I talked about on the podcast. That was another one where it just had a long list of cast members that he has been working with throughout his career as a director. So, but this was a really fun movie to watch. I've beginning to start to like this style that Wes Anderson does. It's kind of like this play stage style of filming. It's not like your typical film. I know a lot of people probably aren't really into Wes Anderson's look and feel of his movies, but I've been slowly becoming a big fan of his after seeing Asteroid City, which I absolutely loved. This is a really good follow-up to it. He does a lot of dark comedy satires with his films. The Grand Budapest Hotel is another great one that I finally watched about 5 years ago, and it was really, really good. So I'm becoming a Wes Anderson nut. So definitely check out this, even if you see an actor in here that you like. I mean, Scarlett Johansson's in here again. She was phenomenal in Asteroid City. She has a small part in here, and she just kills it. Definitely check out this. It's on Peacock, so if you're already paying for it, might as well give this a try. Maybe you'll end up liking it. So I'm going to give this movie 3 popcorn buckets on the popcorn scale. So yeah, I really enjoy Wes Anderson, and I'm looking forward to what he does next. So that'll do it for today's news and reactions. Let's head over to our featured film of the day, End of Watch, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Peña.
Get the fuck off or I will blow your fucking head off!
And I'm here to arrest you.
Book him, Z. You good, partner?
I'm good.
13 extra 13, show code 4. Suspects in custody.
We were precinct patrol here in Newton, one of the toughest divisions in the LAPD.
That's right. Lucky 13.
Watch the street. Make sure no assholes come up here and kill us.
You good?
Good.
What are we looking for again? Dope, money, and guns.
Policia!
Officials are telling us there was a very gruesome discovery at one of the largest narcotic seizures this year.
You and your homeboy need to power down. Cartels are operating here. They operate by a different set of rules.
We gotta get these fuckers when they're alone. That's what we're gonna fucking do. You guys fucking do this shit, right? I'm gonna treat you right.
Where's the fucking cavalry, man?
I don't know!
I am fate with a badge and a gun. Protecting the prey from the predators. The good from the bad.
Go! Move!
We are the police.
Where it is, we got a hit on y'all, man. Y'all been greenlit.
Come on, man, we're cops. Everybody wants to kill us.
So End of Watch is a film that I love rewatching. I've probably seen this film 10, 15 times since it came out, which it came out in, let me pull up the date here. I believe it was 2012 when it came out. September 21st, 2012. This was one of the best theater experience I ever had. I love the realistic take of this film with the documentary style that they do with it, or first person, however you want to do it. But it was more of this one was more documentary because I love how they kind of explain the cameras in this movie. So Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays Brian Taylor, and then his partner, played by Michael Peña, Mike Zavala, or Z as Gyllenhaal's character calls him. He is going to school to become a lawyer. He had to take an elective in college, as we all know that you have to do. So his elective of choice was film study. So that kind of explains why he's carrying these cameras around. He's documenting his career as a LAPD cop. And I thought that was a really smart move on David Ayer's part to kind of have some backstory with these cameras, which a lot of these, first-person documentary style movies don't really give you a backstory. So I thought that was a really cool, unique way to make this more realistic than it already is. And the things that Gyllenhaal and Michael Peña do in this film are just insane. I'm going to step on some of the fun facts already. I'm going to do things a little bit out of order than I normally do. I'm going to start with these fun facts. That way we can kind of just dive right into the realistic aspect of this movie, because I think that's the biggest thing to take away from this film, is that it's one of the most, if not the most authentic cop film that we've ever had as far as like realistic stuff inside of it. Because Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Peña did pretty much the majority of this. There were not a whole lot of stunt doubles or CGI and stuff like that going on with this film. So they were really in the LAPD patrol car. They had the real equipment. They had the uniforms. They did all the codes and real cases that LAPD cops deal with on a daily basis. So, so the fun facts that I was going to bring up today. So Gyllenhaal and Peña spent 5 months doing 12-hour ride-alongs with actual on-duty LAPD officers to train for this film. Gyllenhaal actually witnessed a murder on his first ride-along, which is got to be frightening for him, but it helps create that character background that he was trying to make for Brian Taylor, who we only get like a brief backstory on him, but he was in the Marines. He wanted to become a cop, and now he's starting to become a lawyer. So Gyllenhaal witnessing that murder, I think, helped him build that character of Brian Taylor a lot. But yeah, the fact that they went through 5 months of doing this, basically being cadets in the police academy to train for this movie, just adds more to the realistic aspect of this movie that I absolutely love. Most of the crude banter between Taylor and Zavala was improvised by Gyllenhaal and Peña, which really adds on to the aesthetic and the realistic relationship that they have between each other. I believe when I was reading for the podcast today, Gyllenhaal and Peña were not really great friends on set first, but as they went through the training and the filming, they actually become really good friends now. But it's really interesting to see that they didn't really care for each other, and now they're like really, really good friends in real life, which is awesome. The scene towards the end of the film where the patrol car crashes into the silver minivan was not scripted. Peña actually crashed into the back of the minivan on accident. The actors didn't know that the road was repaved, so when Peña hit the brakes, the patrol car skid across the road into that minivan, causing the airbags to deploy, which was really cool. To add that, to keep adding on to that realistic aspect of the movie. You're going to hear me say that a lot because that's the biggest thing that I take of and why I love this movie so much is that it feels like you're actually in the cop car with Gyllenhaal and Peña. It's real action on the streets of LA. It's just so good. Zavala and Taylor were loosely based on real-life LAPD officers Charles Wonder and Jamie McBride. They were partners in the Newton division back in the mid-90s. So that was really cool that their characters are actually kind of based on actual officers of the LAPD. When Brian and Mike stop at the liquor store and stick their heads inside the refrigerators to cool down, this is a very calming tactic done by a lot of police officers in hot and humid areas. In fact, the bulletproof vests will actually stick and cause burns to the skin from the amount of moisture that gets between the vest and the skin. So that's really cool that was something that cops actually do. They go into the nearest gas station or convenience store and they just stick their heads into the freezer so that they can cool down and they don't get those burns. A lot of police officers now have a small duct or hose they attach to one of the AC vents inside their police vehicles, which they stick down their shirt while driving to cool between calls. So that would have been really cool to see in the movie. I don't recall a scene where they actually did that, but that's really cool that they added that in there. At least we got the gas station scene for sure. So kind of break down the backstory a little bit more, and then going through all the cast members. So like I said, Officers Taylor and Zavala are LAPD partners. They go on various calls throughout the movie. I think didn't really, if I remember right, I think there's like 4 or 5 big calls that they get, and then they kind of get thrown into some extra calls that they weren't planning on. But I believe there's at least 4, major calls that they deal with. They deal with the welfare check on the old lady who ends up being butchered in her own home, along with other various bodies. There was the gang member with the chili pot of money and the gold AK that they stop because of the CD hindering his vision. So that was a call that they did. Then they end up getting a noise complaint call at Big Ego's and the gang's house at party, which was really cool. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. What was the other one? I know I'm missing one. There was the call of the missing children, but it turns out the mother and the boyfriend or father or whoever the hell he was just duct taped them into the closet. I'm going to be talking about that scene a lot because that one really disturbs me, even watching it, for the 15th, 20th time. I think there was another scene that another call. I just can't remember. Oh, the one where David Harbour gets the knife shoved into his eye, and the homeboy just beats the crap out of the rookie, and Gyllenhaal's got a shotgun to his head, ready to blow him out of his feet. That was another gruesome call, and I'll talk about that a little bit more too. So there's at least 5 or 6 really big calls, and I'll run through each of them here after I go through the cast list. So I've already talked about Gyllenhaal a little bit. He plays Officer Brian Taylor. Gyllenhaal is one of my favorite actors of all time. He's been in so many great movies, like The Nightcrawler, I absolutely love. Donnie Darko was one of the first movies I ever saw him in. Brokeback Mountain with Heath Ledger was a phenomenon before Heath Ledger's untimely death. Prisoners, I absolutely love. Roadhouse is one of his more recent ones. I thought he was really good in there, in that Swayze remake for Amazon. The Covenant was really good. Ambulance, that Michael Bay movie that he did, was awesome. The Guilty was a Netflix kind of bomb, but I enjoyed it. It was one of those COVID movies where it was just Gyllenhaal in a what was it, a one of those call centers for the police, and he's on the phone with a potential kidnap victim, talking him through the situation. Uh, Stronger he was in, based on the real life. What was his Jeff Bauman, of the unfortunate bombing at the Boston Marathon. He was in Life, which I actually love, and I think is secretly a Venom prequel, if you know what I'm talking about. Nocturnal Animals is a great one. Demolition, Everest. I can go on forever with his IMDb, but he's just a phenomenal actor, and I'm going to go through my top 5 favorites of Gyllenhaal in today's rankings, as well as Michael Peña, who plays Mike Zavala, or Z, as Officer Taylor calls him. He himself has had a really interesting career. I think he's a very underrated actor, and I absolutely love him in this film. He's been in films like American Hustle. He was Ant-Man's best buddy in the Marvel series, who is one of my favorite roles of his. I haven't seen the film yet, but he's in the Statham movie that came out earlier this year, A Working Man, so I'm really excited to see him in there. Another one of my favorites was Shooter, where he was alongside Mark Wahlberg. He was in Moonfall, which was kind of a really big miss. What else was he in? The Netflix film Extraction, which was all right. He was in Chips. I actually haven't seen Chips yet. I think that was with Dax Shepard, right? Yeah. I haven't seen that one yet, but I'm going to have to finally go watch it since I love Michael Peña. Collateral Beauty, I absolutely love him in there. That's a great role of his. He was in The Martian, great role. Fury. He himself has been in a bunch of movies, but he's always kind of the second or third lead in these movies. He hasn't really led many movies by himself. I think the most recent one he led himself was, what was the astronaut one? Let me look here. A Million Miles Away, I think is what it was called. It was one of those Amazon movies, I believe. I think that was probably his most recent one a couple of years ago, where he led a movie. But otherwise, he's been more of the, like I said, the second or third lead. But I think that's where his strength is. You know, you give him enough screen time to make a presence. I think that's where he's more comfortable, where he's more successful, is in that second or third lead. I think once you put him in the leading role, it's great, but you got to surround him with a really good cast and a really good script. So Anna Kendrick, I absolutely love Anna Kendrick. She pops up about midway through the film as Gyllenhaal's girlfriend and then eventually wife. We do get an incredible wedding scene with those two, and just see their relationship kind of grow throughout these first few days of their relationship. I think this movie spans, I read it somewhere, I think it's about 4-8 months or something like that. Let me see if I can find it again. It was in my notes. Maybe I can just Google it. I think it was about I think it was about 8 months, if I remember right. Timeline of End to Watch. That's not what I wanted. Let's try this. Time frame of End to Watch. I know this is great podcasting, but I just can't find it. I'll have to look it up later. But yeah, I think the story kind of goes about 6 to 8 months, which makes sense. You know, Gyllenhaal and Anna Kendrick start dating, and then they eventually get married. So I gotta imagine it's about 6 to 8 months throughout this entire story. We also get David Harbour, who I talked about a little briefly. He's the one that gets the knife shoved into his eye, and I'll be talking about that scene a little bit later on in the show. Absolutely love David Harbour. I always forget that he's in here, even though he is in one of the most gruesome scenes I've ever seen. But yeah, he's become a very good household name. He's Hopper in Stranger Things. He was the Red Guardian in the Marvel Universe, which he was in the Thunderbolts most recently. He was in the Hellboy film, which was a pretty big blunder. I guess he's in Working Man too. I'm gonna have to really watch the Working Man, because they got David Harbour and Michael Peña in here. Oh my god, that's totally nuts. He was in Gran Turismo as one of the coaches. So yeah, he's had quite a big career since starting. I know he's done films before Stranger Things, but I think him playing Hopper really skyrocketed his career, and now he's been in almost everything. Who else is in here? Frank Grillo, who is a very underrated actor. I absolutely love Frank Grillo. He plays the sergeant of the division that Gyllenhaal and Peña are part of. he's another one that I feel like if you give him a movie to lead, it's not going to be the most incredible, heartbreaking, or incredible, breathtaking performance. He's more of the same thing of Michael Peña, the second, third, fourth lead, and that's where he really succeeds. Give him a little bit of screen time where he can kind of yell and be aggressive, but him leading a movie just isn't really in his wheelhouse. I think his strength comes in as a supporting actor. But he's great. I love seeing him in the films, and I wish he did more. He's part of the DC universe now, but he was previously in the Marvel universe, so he's been no stranger to the superhero gang. But yeah, he's fantastic in here as the sergeant of the division. I love his last kind of moment at the end of the film, where after Taylor and Zavala get gunned down by the gang, the squad rolls up, and I think what's her name, Lala, yells, curbside gang, and all Frank Grillo says is "fuck you." He cocks his shotgun and just blows him to bits. I absolutely love Frank Grillo, and it's because of moments like that in movies where he's just a total badass. Looking at the rest of the cast, America Ferrera comes in, and then her partner. Played by Cody Horn. They are background characters, but they do add a lot to the story as well. You could tell that America Ferrera's, I just lost train of thought. Her character kind of has a dark past, and they kind of briefly mention it in that party scene at Big Ego's backyard, where Lala's is kind of like, you want to hit this, referring to, a joint, kind of insinuating that America Ferrera's character had a past before she became a cop. But yeah, I think her partner, Cody Horn, I believe Davis is her character name. They kind of just give Gyllenhaal and Peña shit a lot of the time, and kind of just be sarcastic. That's kind of their role, but they do add that realistic feel to it because there are partners, who give each other shit on the force. For my days, kind of being around cops, I actually been on a couple of ride-alongs, and there is a lot of this banter back and forth between the cops, giving each other shit. So I think that was really realistic. The last name I was going to mention was Natalie Martinez, who plays Gabby. She is the wife to Michael Peña's Zavala character. She's great. She's only in a few scenes, but she kind of grounds Michael Peña's character and kind of reminds you that he's a father, he's a husband, who's putting his life on the line every single day. You get that fire scene where they go into the house and saving those children. And then you hear in the convenience store about how his wife yelled at him about, you're running into a burning building. You could have died and your kid's not even born yet. I need you here to be my rock, and that's a lot of conversations that I suppose that, cops have with their wife or their girlfriend or their family, where they're putting their life on the line, and their sworn duty is to, maybe take a bullet or run into a burning building to save lives. That's what they sign up for. And I think that they don't get as much credit as they deserve. There was a time where I actually was going to try to become a cop at one point. It didn't work because here I am reviewing movies instead. But that's a career path that I've always been fascinated with. Talking with friends that are cops and family members that are cops. It's a life that I guess I wasn't supposed to be a part of, but I was interested in at a time. I have a lot of respect for all the cops out there, and I think they deserve even more respect. So thank you for all you guys do in your service. And this film reminds me all the time that these guys are just, and women, I should say, excuse me, they're just people too, doing their job. They signed up to protect people, and they take a lot of shit, unfortunately. There are bad cops out there, but then you have guys like Brian Taylor and Mike Zavala in the movie that they're there to protect people. They want to help out. They want to save lives. They want to do something in the community, and they need to be recognized more. So this movie is a really good platform to show that the cops actually do a lot of good in our community, and they're not all corrupt pieces of crap like some of them are, unfortunately. So That's my little big rant for right now, and supporting the police in your area. So, moving on. I've talked about quite a bit about the real life aspect of this film. Some scenes, I didn't mention this before, were actually shot by Gyllenhaal. Gyllenhaal is surprisingly a really good director. And I think he's going to be one of those actors later on in his career that once he stops doing movies, I think he's going to go like the Clint Eastwood route. And what Ben Affleck is probably going to do as well when he stops, being in front of the camera. I think he's going to go behind the camera and he's going to start directing and writing movies, or maybe even doing the Seth Rogen thing where he sets up his own production company and starts making movies on his own. So I think Gyllenhaal has a really bright future as a director, and it shows in here where he did a lot of the camera work himself because that's just kind of how the film was set up. He's got the handheld, they've got the body cams, the dash cams, and he was very, very involved with the cameras in this movie. So that was really cool to see. Talk about the director a little bit, David Ayer. He's probably most famous for, that really god awful Suicide Squad movie for DC. But he went on to do some awesome films like this, for instance. End of Watch is probably my favorite of his. He did Sabotage. He did Fury with Brad Pitt, Michael Peña once again. He's produced a lot of movies. He's written a lot of screenplays. He directed a lot of these Statham movies coming up, like The Beekeeper was actually pretty good. And then The Working Man, which I'm going to need to add to my list really good right away. I absolutely love Bright. That's the fantasy film that he did for Netflix, starring Will Smith on fairies and orcs and all that with the magical wand and being a cop. I think that's a franchise I was hoping would have a bunch of sequels by now, but I don't think we're ever going to get a sequel to Bright, unfortunately. Even though I really love that universe that he built. Sabotage was a pretty interesting one with Arnold Schwarzenegger about dirty DEA agents, confiscating money from drug lords and drugs and all that. That one had quite a cast too. I think Sam Worthington was in that one. Jessica Chastain, Terrence Howard was in there. I think that's a really underrated movie. Definitely check out Sabotage if you haven't seen that one. Street Kings, I actually watched in preparation for the podcast today, just to kind of get in that cop David Ayer world. And I really like Street Kings. I think Keanu Reeves is really good in there. Forrest Whitaker is the chief / kind of dirty cop in there. Chris Evans pops up as one of the detectives. He unfortunately ends up taking a bullet, which gets pretty bloody. Hugh Laurie, Dr. House himself, pops up in there. So yeah, I think this is a very underrated. Street Kings is very underrated. It's a really good cop movie. It's got a really good Keanu Reeves performance. David Ayer did a really good job at directing it. So definitely check out Street Kings. That's another cop one that I highly recommend. But yeah, he actually, holy crap, I didn't even know this. David Ayer acted in Training Day as the first Russian hitman. No way. Oh, that changes everything for Training Day. I didn't even know that. So that's really cool. We're getting a David Ayer double feature without even knowing it on the podcast. That is really, really awesome. But anyways, I digress. Back to End of Watch. But yeah, David Ayer did a really good job. I think this is my favorite film of his, followed by probably Street Kings or Sabotage. I really like Sabotage too. That's a really, really cool way to do it. I'm kind of curious to see if this got nominated for anything. I didn't bother to look up that. So, okay, so it did win 3 awards, but nothing Oscar related, which is unfortunate. Bunch of Spirit Awards, MTV Movie Awards, Critic Choice Awards nominee for Gyllenhaal, which is fantastic. Yeah, I don't see any Oscar nominations, which, this would have been the 2013 Oscars. So that would have been the Wolf of Wall Street year. But still, I think Gyllenhaal definitely deserves some recognition for his role. I absolutely love him in this film. Yeah, this film is just really, really underrated. I absolutely love it. So let's check my notes here to see if I had anything else. Oh yeah, I wrote that down. Characters that you fall in love with. I fell in love with all these characters, especially Taylor and Zavala. I just really love what Michael Peña and Jake Gyllenhaal did with these characters. They made them people that we root for, and it's unfortunate that they end up, getting gunned down at the end. Gyllenhaal does survive, so I'm going to spoil this. So if you haven't seen the film, you're going to want to turn this podcast off right now. Um, but yeah, so Gyllenhaal and Michael Peña at the very end, they get into that big shootout with the curbside gang. They end up getting gunned down in one of the alleyways there. The way they set that up was really cool, to where they both get. I think Taylor gets shot first, from what I remember, and he's unconscious on the ground. He's bleeding out. Um, Z is trying to put pressure on it, try to keep him alive. He reaches for his gun, and the curbside gang eventually gun him down with AKs. So he's obviously gone and out of commission. But the way David Ayer did this was he made it look as if they both died. But then we switch over to the funeral, and it gets revealed that Gyllenhaal actually survived. And I think that was the most heartbreaking part of it. The first initial thought of those two dying, like kills you inside. You're like, ah, crap. I was rooting for these two, and now they're both dead. But then it breaks your heart even more that when we get to that wake scene, and you see Gyllenhaal sitting there with Gabby and Jeanette, his wife, played by Anna Kendrick. And then your heart just sinks even lower into your stomach, because you're like, oh crap, Michael Peña died, and now Jake Gyllenhaal has to move on without his best friend. And you see Gabby there with Peña's son, and she's just crying, and it's just really, really heartbreaking. I love that scene when Gyllenhaal walks up to the podium, and he only has the energy to say 3 words. I think it was, "He was my brother." And that's all he needed to say. And that basically sums up their relationship. They were brothers. Like, they were more than best friends, that they were brothers. And he had to sit there and bury his brother. And that's really unfortunate. And it's Gyllenhaal did such a good job in that funeral scene, with his arm in a sling, and he's got the crutch on the other hand, and he's hobbling up to the podium, and he's trying to hold back tears, and he only gets those 3 words out. And it was a very heartbreaking scene when you realize that he has to live without his brother. And then instead of leaving it there, I thought it was a really good choice to cut back to a previous moment between him and Peña, where they talk about Michael Peña underneath the bed when he first was dating Gabby, and he hears Gabby's parents having sex above him on the bed. And I thought that was a really great way to end the movie on a really funny joke and high note, instead of us just being in tears over this funeral for Z. So I thought that was a really good choice to end it on that clip in the patrol car. It was a really, really good story, and it was really fun to see them both laughing before they get into that deadly shootout at the end. So breaking down some of the cases that I mentioned before. The one where David Harbour, who plays Officer Van Houser, gets a knife through his eye, and there was a moment where Frank Grillo's like, nah, he's done. He had his lens hanging out of his eyeball. Like, that's how gnarly that knife wound was. And this shows you everything. You have David Harbour leaning up against this light pole, and he's just like sitting up like this with a knife in his freaking eye. And the prosthetics and the makeup that they did to do that was really incredible. And then they eventually get into that alleyway where this big Mexican guy is just beating the crap out of Boone, or the rookie who was attached to Officer Van Houser. And it's just a really violent scene. And you really like rooting for Gyllenhaal to just blow this guy away with the shotgun. But he says it best at the end, where Frank Grillo comes over and he goes, "Hey, why didn't you shoot that guy? He had him dead to rights." And Gyllenhaal just goes, "I didn't feel like killing anybody tonight, Sarge." And that's probably the best. I think he made the best choice. Yeah, most of us probably would have just pulled the trigger in that moment to save a fellow officer, but using his training, staying calm, going through the procedures. They just ended up arresting this guy, and he'll go into jail and probably be released again. But there's moments where even gunslingers like Brian Taylor, he doesn't want to kill if he doesn't have to. So he saw the opportunity where he didn't have to pull the trigger, and he just did the arrest. So I think that was a really cool way to kind of show you the mindset and these really difficult situations that these officers get into a lot. And the decision making that they have to make on the fly. It's really, really well done. Like, the more I talk about this and we dissect this movie, the more I even love it and want to watch it again. It's just so realistic, and we get into the psyche of these officers, that especially in LA. There's another line in there from Gyllenhaal where he's like, our division or our precinct, deals with more violent cases. We draw our weapons more than anybody else in California and the country. There's that moment where he goes, there's officers that'll be a cop for like 20 years and they will never draw their weapon ever. And that's the truth of it. LA is a very violent city right now, and it's a lot of those big cities: Portland, Chicago, New York. Being a cop in those big cities, there is a really strong risk that you are going to get shot at, or you're going to get shot, because they are so violent versus, smaller towns, rural towns where crime isn't, as high or anything like that. So I think the choice of making this LA was really good, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in a big city like Los Angeles. So especially some of these specific districts that they go into, there's just heavy gang violence and all that stuff. So really, really good choices by the cast and the writing staff and David Ayer, getting really realistic with all these. Another case was the welfare check, where they get the okay from a worried, I think it was the daughter, to check on her mother, who hasn't been in contact with her for days. So they do a welfare check, which happens a lot. That's a lot of the calls that police get, are welfare checks on elderly and so forth. So I love that moment when they get up to the door and Michael Peña just goes, I kick doors down. I thought that was a really good kind of breather and separation from all the violence. Was a little bit of comedy from Michael Peña, and those comedy moments are really well placed on where they need to be. It's not overused, it's not misplaced. They happen where they need to be, and it feels so fluid on how they do. Like, this is when we need to get serious, when we need to get bloody. This is where we can take some time to look at Zavala and Taylor's relationship, or have some comedy beats to it. So that was really cool. But they end up getting into that house and finding out that the elderly woman has been dead for quite a while, actually. And we don't get to smell these situations, but you can tell by the reaction to Gyllenhaal and Peña that has got to be a horrific smell, coming across a body that has been in there for 3-4 days rotting. It's just can't imagine the smell of that. Another scene would have been the scene where they get into the house, and in that kitchen area there's just dismembered bodies, and there's this pool of limbs and heads just going over there, and the smell of it is rank. And that's kind of similar to when they get to the Coyote's house, where they are smuggling these people into the US, and they're all cramped up into this house, and just the smell and Michael Peña, being a Mexican, seeing this happen to people of his culture, is really heartbreaking, that he's got to walk in there and see his fellow people, treated this way, and having to do this, to live a life. So it's really unfortunate and it's really cool that they kind of dive into that psyche of Zavala, being a Mexican American. So really, really good thing. The other case I wanted to talk about before we get into rankings was the two kids being duct taped into the closet, which pisses me off even today. If anybody that knows me, like, any crime involving a child just really infuriates me. And it's just really unfortunate that it actually does happen in the world, that kids are every day are getting abused and mistreated. And this case in particular, it's one of the first ones that we dive into with Gyllenhaal and Peña, where they get a call about two missing kids. I think one was 1 year old and the other one was 3. Turns out the mother is a drug abuse mother, and the boyfriend or whoever the hell that was on the couch. They claim that the kids she claimed that the kids were kidnapped. The boyfriend or whatever say, no, the kids are at the grandmother's. Gyllenhaal goes further into the house, and then he comes across the closet where the little baby is duct taped and the little boy is duct taped like this. And it's just really heartbreaking to see that this stuff actually does happen. There are terrible parents out there that, want to, do drugs and do this other crazy stuff. And in order to do that in peace, they got to duct tape their kids and throw them in the closet. It's really, really unfortunate that happens, but it happens in the world. And I think that scene is really heartbreaking and really intense, but it needed to be in a movie like this to show you that cops do get into situations like that where a kid is involved, a lot of times more than they probably want to. I'm sure they would rather deal with the calls where, you're checking on an elderly woman, versus, two kids are missing, but it turns out that they're freaking duct taped into their own closet. It's really heartbreaking. And I think Gyllenhaal did a really good job in that scene where he at first contains his emotions, but as soon as he sees that kid, he acts like I do, where he comes rushing into the room and he shoves the guy's face in the couch and he goes, I'm going to shoot you, motherfucker. And he arrests them instead of killing them both when, it just really sucks. And he's got to go in there. He's got the pocket knife and he's cutting the little tape off the little boy's hand. And it's just really, really heartbreaking. But those are calls that the cops, unfortunately have to deal with. So it's just the cases that they chose in this movie were really, really freaking good. And they gotta give you different aspects of the life of an LAPD cop. And it's really cool how they set that up. But yeah, so that's End of Watch. I absolutely love it. If you have not seen it, please watch it. It's a really good showing of what cops have to deal with, especially in big cities like LA and New York and Chicago, where there's a lot of gang violence, and a lot of psychopaths out there who are just causing mischief. So they deserve the credit that they've done. I know they sign up for it, not looking for the praise, but we should try to give the cops more praise because there are really good ones out there that want to really help. So definitely check out End of Watch if you haven't. If you have, watch it again. I'm going to watch it 50 more times because it's such an awesome, awesome movie. So I absolutely love it. So to end the episode, like we always do, we're going to go through the rankings. I'm going to give my top 5 Gyllenhaal films, my top 5 Michael Peña films, and then I'm going to give my popcorn scale for End of Watch. So let's head over to the rankings. So for today's rankings, we're going to do the top 5 Gyllenhaal and the top 5 Michael Peña. We're going to start with Gyllenhaal. Let me pull up my list here. Let me get to it. Jake. There he is. I think I got like 24 on this list, but we're going to go through the top 5. Okay, so number 5, we got Southpaw, which I really like. That is a boxing film that he did with Rachel McAdams and Forrest Whitaker. It was a film by Antoine Fuqua, which is one of my favorite boxing movies. Gyllenhaal got into crazy, crazy shape for this movie, and he's really good in there. So that is number 5 for me. Prisoners, I absolutely love, and I'm hoping to do that on the podcast. Gyllenhaal plays Detective Loki alongside Hugh Jackman, Keller Dover. They start to investigate the disappearance of Hugh Jackman's kidnapped daughter. Terrence Howard pops up as well. Viola Davis is in there. It's a really Paul Dano. It's got really good cast. It's a very dark movie, but it's really, really well done. Hugh Jackman has a great performance in there, but it's as far as Jake Gyllenhaal's, he's a really good detective in here. He's kind of not your typical detective. He gets very emotional throughout the movie, which is really, really good. It's a fantastic film. Definitely check it out. Number 3, this is where I got End of Watch. As much as I really, really want to put it at 1, the ones that are in the top 2 I have my reasons for it, but for it being in 3, it's still a really good performance. One of my favorites of his. That's why it's in the top 5. But he's just phenomenal, and I've talked about it at length about him in there. So that's number 3. Number 2, this is where I got Zodiac. This was the David Fincher film based on the Zodiac killer. This is a movie that drove Jake Gyllenhaal nuts and why he would never work with David Fincher, if you've heard that story. But Gyllenhaal is freaking fantastic in here as Robert Graysmith, who wrote the book that the movie is based on. They explored the number one suspect of the Zodiac killings was Arthur Lee Allen. Now, I have my own theories on the Zodiac. This is a case that I've been really digging deep in the research for, and it's because of this movie. When I first saw this movie, I was like sucked into the cold case that is the Zodiac killer. And when we do the Zodiac episode, I will give my thoughts and theories on the Zodiac killer. But just kind of focusing on Gyllenhaal's performance in here, it's really, really well done as the cartoonist at the Chronicle in San Francisco, I believe. So yeah, he's really good in there. And number 1, this is where I got Nightcrawler. He plays a very creepy but smart news reporter or journalist, I guess you could say, Lewis Bloom. He is a kind of entrepreneur. God, I can't even say that word. Where he starts his own crime journalist company, where him and Razid Ahmed drive around in his hot rod and film different situations like robberies and murders and car accidents and sell that footage to the highest bidder, aka the news companies. So he does a lot of freelance, and then eventually he gets his company rolling. I'm trying to remember the name of that company. I think it's like Action News or something like that. But this is another movie that I really want to do on the podcast because this is I think the highest quality performance that Gyllenhaal has done so far, and the way he performs it as this creepy yet smart guy that just wants to make his own business and make a name for himself. So very, very, very awesome Jake Gyllenhaal. So definitely check out Nightcrawler if you have not. So those are my top 5. Gyllenhaal's Nightcrawler, Zodiac, End of Watch, Prisoners, and Southpaw. Let's switch over to my top 5 Michael Peña. This was a little tougher, but I did nail down my top 5. So the first one is The Martian. This is the Ridley Scott film starring Matt Damon. Michael Peña is one of the fellow astronauts, Rick Martinez, with Matt Damon on this mission to Mars. He has it's a smaller role. I think he's like the 4th or 5th lead in this movie. But the scenes that he is in there is really good. And I absolutely love him in here. So number 5 is The Martian. 4, The World Trade Center. This is the Nicolas Cage film based on the unfortunate real life event of 9/11. Michael Peña plays alongside Nicolas Cage, and he did a really fantastic job as Will Jimeno. A lot of the movie is him and Nicolas Cage stuck in the World Trade Center tower after it was hit with the plane. But Peña is really, really good in there. I absolutely love him. Number 3 is Shooter. This is another film that I'm hoping to do on the podcast at one point because I absolutely love Mark Wahlberg, but I really love Michael Peña in here. He plays Nick Memphis, an FBI agent tasked with bringing in Mark Wahlberg, but he ends up discovering that Wahlberg is being framed for the assassination attempt of I think it was like an African prime minister or something, if I remember right. It's another Antoine Fuqua film. But Michael Peña is great. The scene that I always remember with Peña is that mechanism that forces his hand to basically kill himself with a pistol. You know, they have the gun strapped up here, and it's kind of by pulleys and stuff, and they crank it up here so that it makes it look like he killed himself, but he really didn't. So, but Michael Peña is really good in there. I love him in Shooter. Number 2 is Ant-Man, where he plays, what was his name in here? Lewis, as the wisecracking best friend to Paul Rudd's, Scott Lang, aka Ant-Man. I love the recaps that he does. I wish he did a recap for the entire Marvel universe, like every other fan wants. But he's really fun and quirky and hilarious in this film. So that is my second favorite role of his is Luis and Ant-Man. And then number one, this is where I got End to Watch. I already revealed that, but this is my favorite Michael Peña performance. It's unfortunate that he ends up dying at the end of this, but he's really fun. He's hilarious when he needs to be. He's serious and into the action when he needs to be. And this is probably his best performance, I think, and my favorite performance of his career. So those are the top 5 Michael Peñas for me. End of Watch, Ant-Man, Shooter, World Trade Center, and The Martian. So I will post those on the social media pages. Now to wrap things up with the popcorn scale, I am giving this the golden popcorn tier. It's the most authentic cop film that we have ever gotten. Peña and Gyllenhaal are fantastic in here as LAPD officers, Brian Taylor and Mike Zavala. Them going through that 5 months of police training really helped sell and make these roles authentic as possible. They did a lot of the stunts themselves. Gyllenhaal, of course, did a lot of the cinematography himself because he's carrying around the cameras. So this is a top tier movie for me, one of my favorite movies of all time. So it's getting the golden popcorn bucket tier. So that'll do it for today's show. Like I said, we're going to do a double feature. So the next episode will be Training Day, starring Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. And then we can get ready for another franchise that I'm going to dip into in the month of September. And then that'll lead into Fright Nights and then some other review episodes that I'll do in between. And then we'll get ready for the Marvel Fridays and then some other new releases coming out. So a lot of big things happening on the podcast. I'm super excited for all these reviews. But until then, I will see you all next time.